Hi, everyone. I'm Rejoice on Umatta Consultant Podcast. If today's your first time on our show, please make sure you subscribe to all of our social media channels, especially Spotify. Today, we have the special privilege of speaking with Robert. Robert is the author of Strategic Human Firewall. I would love for him to also introduce himself as he sees fit so we can dive right into the questions. So, Robert, the mic is yours, please.
Hey, nice to meet you. I am from Boston, and when people find out that I'm from Boston, they often ask me, and I tell them I have never ever parked a car in Harvard Yard ever. Haven't, yeah. And actually, I might have actually. Last year, I went to a hockey game there.
Mm.
Anyways, so I born and bred Bostonian. I've been speaking, training, consulting, educating, informing on security awareness
Mhm.
for 30 plus years. And, it's what I do. It's my full-blown passion. I'm a dad. I'm a girl dad. I got a 17-year-old, 20-year-old. One of them's in Bentley University in the Boston area, and married 25 years. So, yeah,
Amazing.
yeah.
That's a huge accomplishment, by the way. 25 years of marriage these days is a trophy. You should get a trophy for it.
I should get an award. Yeah, she's lovely. She is.
Exactly. Amazing. Kudos to your family.
Thank you.
First question for you, Robert. When you say the human blind spot, what are most people missing? And why is it, I guess, costing organizations millions?
So to define the human blind spot, basically, it is the psychological instinct to trust the familiar, right?
Mm.
It is the cognitive gap where biological trust overrides digital suspicion, leaving the door open to various forms of deception. Understand that we are what is called, well, we're defined as an interdependent species. Humans are interdependent upon each other. And what that means is like we require each other for our survival, for our procreation. We wouldn't exist with each other. And so, as an interdependent species, that requirement means that we trust by default.
Hmm.
So, all day, every day, people you meet, phone calls you receive, texts you get, emails you receive, you pretty much need to and want to and desire to trust that the person on the other end of that communication, the person standing in front of you, has your best interests in mind, right? We want to trust people. We need to. And that essentially boils down to this blind spot because we blindly trust one another because that's our makeup. It's biology. The problem with that is that, you know, 97% of all the people that you will ever meet in the course of your life are worthy of your trust. They're good people. Like they have good intentions. Occasionally, they lie, but that does not necessarily mean that they outright intentionally all the time their goal, their motivation is deception. People lie. There is, unfortunately, a percentage of the population, about 2 to 3%, that the medical community calls antisocial personality disorders, ASPD. They make up, again, 2 to 3% of the population. They are what we would call the sociopaths, the psychopaths, also known as the hardcore narcissists that do harm, you know, and they look at you and I as their natural prey. They are the wolves and the lions. We are the gazelles and the rabbits. And so our job is to kind of recognize when these predators come into our lives, and they do, and how to recognize this risk and how to do something about it before they, essentially win.
Amazing. And I'm so happy that you gave us that brief description and how you tied it into your book, which we're going to talk more about. You have worked in both physical and digital security for decades, Robert. What surprised you the most when you realized that the same human weaknesses exist in both worlds?
Yeah, so I've been, doing what I say for 30 plus years, and that means like when I was in my early 20s, I was in the business of teaching women self-defense. That's what I did. That's where I got my bones. I started teaching women self-defense in my teens, actually, and then in my early 20s, speaking to real estate agents on, personal protection, because real estate agents then and now sometimes get murdered. And that's a real thing.
Wow.
It's a risky profession. And
Yes.
so while I was engaged in the business of personal protection, it being a passion of mine, my small business got hacked in the mid 90s. And when
Wow.
that happened, I realized, like, you know, digital crime is a real thing. Up until that point, I had never even heard of criminal hacking. But I lost thousands and thousands of dollars in credit card fraud via my computer back then. And personal security for me evolved into more than just, you know, being physically assaulted, your house being burgled, your self being mugged or, attacked or assaulted. Now it was like a burglary could happen on your computer.
Right.
And when that occurred, I was astonished at the ease of how much money they made in such a short period of time. And I said to myself, like, if this happened to me, this must be happening to others. And this is lucrative. Like, this can be a big deal. And it turned into a massive, massive problem that we still face today. And today, we have all kinds of security in place, but the bad guys, they are persistent, and they always find ways to get around us. And they have, and they do. The good guys, I would say, are still winning the game,
Hmm.
but the bad guys always find ways around all of our security protocols. There's no such thing as 100% security, and there never will be. So it's up to us to engage in all the best practices.
Exactly. To protect yourself physically and digitally, because especially with technology, it's getting worse out there. So thank you so much for sharing that. I'm very impressed with the physical security too, in terms of teaching women how to protect ourselves and so forth. It's very important.
Hey, as a girl dad, I've had these conversations with my daughters over and over and over and again. Um, and that means, like, I am communicating with them empathetically, explaining to them, the hazards of the world that we live in. When you are communicating security, you have to do it empathetically, which means that you can't speak on these issues regarding predators and thieves with fear-based dialogue.
Hmm.
If you engage in fear-based training, all your audience is gonna do is shut down.
Right.
They don't wanna hear that. We're not capable of consuming that effectively and learning from it. We just wanna put the covers over our head and, like, just, hide. So I empower my girls, I empower my audience. I speak to my audience the same way I talk to my girls. Um, and that is how you get people to, recognize risk a lot more effectively.
Exactly. And you said it very empathetically, which is great in order to get the buy-in of the person to even listen to you versus just being fearful and wanting to run away or so forth.
Yeah.
Why do we still believe technology alone can save us despite repeated bridges tied to human behavior?
So humans are, this might come off wrong, but hey, we're a lot simpler. We are a lot simpler than we give ourselves, than we think we are. Like, we all think that we're just, like, so smart, I guess. And we're just kind of simple when it comes to this stuff. We want to, or think that, and try to believe that, like, security can solve, or technology can solve all our problems, and it really can't. Technology is nothing more than a tool.
Mm,
That's all it really is. Like, let's put it like this. You know, um, you can have a garage full of tools, and to fix a car. But if you don't know the first thing about how to fix a car, those tools aren't going to make any difference to you whatsoever. Okay, you can go on YouTube, you can grab the manual, you can try to figure it out, and you may be able to do that, certainly. But those tools are no good to you unless you make the effort, take the time and learn how to use them. And security is no different. All these various technologies that are available to us, are designed to solve all these various problems.
Hmm.
And you and I, first and foremost, have to have that desire to manage the risk that we face in regards to, bad actors coming into our lives. And once we make that effort, the tools are available and they're pretty easy to use. When I deliver a presentation, nothing that I speak to is beyond the comprehension or ability of anyone in my audience.
Hmm.
Managing passwords, two-factor authentication, updating and upgrading your hardware and your software, everything that I speak to is all doable. It's all generally 101 stuff that if you do these basic things, then chances are you're going to become a tougher target and bad guys are going to move on to somebody else.
Exactly. Exactly. And I love the idea of training it in a way where it's simple, simplicity, right? Because the goal is to teach and educate people, not make it more complicated that it needs to be, especially when it comes to security and devices that we often use. Do you often you often say criminals don't hack systems; they hack people. What does that look like in real life for you?
So there are, you know, um, tools that they use to look for vulnerabilities in hardware and software. Criminals are constantly scanning networks,
Hmm.
looking for all the various like code vulnerabilities. And if they find these code vulnerabilities, they sneak in the back door of that computer or that network. Okay. Now, there are all kinds of layers of security in place to prevent that from happening, right? So, for example, like when Apple or Microsoft sends you a notification that you have to update your operating system, you have to update your device. That's generally because they found some type of a critical vulnerability in your hardware or software, and that download is required in order to protect your device and the data that's on it. Okay, so Microsoft, Apple, McAfee, whoever, like that's what they do. They make sure that our hardware and software is properly protected. But the easiest way to get around all of that security is to hack the human, is to trick the human into clicking that link, downloading a virus, providing sensitive information, wiring money wherever. Hacking humans is actually easier than hacking computers
Hmm.
due to the fact that there is so much security in place. Major companies, for example, like Wells Fargo, Bank of America, they spend billions of dollars every single year protecting our banking systems, right? The easiest way to hack a person's bank account is to socially engineer, trick that human into responding to a text message or an email, clicking a link, and providing your credentials to that criminal.
It's just so amazing how technology, as technology advances and corporations are investing in technology, still the target is humans that these criminals are going after. And that actually gives me my next follow up question to you. How has AI amplified the human blind spot rather than eliminating it?
We are at the very beginning of AI um, being a huge problem facilitating fraud. AI is an amazing tool, and that's what it is. It's a tool. And it's a tool that is also being used by criminals to pose as you and I, to fake our likeness and our voices, deep fakes and voice cloning. Um, the human is incapable of determining the real or fake voice. It's perfect. AI is capable of generating a perfect voice that we are incapable of telling the difference. 100%. There's no way to determine it, other than, of course, various technologies in place that can, in fact, determine a real voice versus a fake voice via certain algorithms. But that's not something that you would be able to figure out over a phone call. You get that phone call, it's your loved one, it's your daughter, it's your coworker, it's and so forth. We can't tell the difference. Technology can. And then the likelihood of us getting phone calls and emails that have been manipulated in some way by artificial intelligence is 100% at this point. And the old school, what we would call scammer grammar, when you got an email that had, you know, typos and grammatical errors, and it sounded like somebody from a foreign nation was trying to figure it out.
Yes.
Well, that's over.
Yes.
The perfect email is here. It's been here. And there's no way to tell the difference between an email that comes from your bank versus an email that comes from a criminal posing as your bank, other than looking at the email address, maybe where the link goes. There are still some telltale red flags that you can look at, but on its face, the emails themselves are generally perfect. That's
Ex-
the problem.
Exactly. Because they're using the AI tools to make it perfect to target specific people, which makes it a lot more difficult for
Yeah,
you.
and they're gathering a lot of that data from your social media profile,
Right.
from your company profile.
Right.
So if you're an employee working for an organization and your biography is listed on the company website along with your LinkedIn profile, they gather that data, they put it together, and they're posing as whoever they are to try to uh, socially engineer or convince you to engage you in revealing additional information, getting on a meeting, transferring money, whatever the case might be.
Right. It's interesting to me because what you were describing from my memory as an HR professional, the old school training, look for this, spelling mistakes here, grammar mistakes, all of those things are outdated. But a lot of companies are still utilizing those types of trainings. And it takes me to my next question I have for you. What exactly is strategic human firewall? And how is it different from traditional security training, in your opinion?
So right now, I would say 99% of security awareness training is compliance based. You know, it's check the box. We did our job. We provided security training for an hour or two a year, which is just ridiculous to me. I mean, we're being bombarded 24/7, 365 regarding threats. I don't know if about you, but I know that I'm getting 2 or 3 text messages every single day, 8 to 10 emails every single day. I am constantly being bombarded with fraud attempts, constantly threats. And to train for an hour or 2 a year to say that you're compliant, and then the training itself is, you know, phishing simulation training, which is necessary, and it's designed to solve the problem of phishing. And certainly there's, micro e-learning that you might get like regularly, which is good. But phishing simulation training by itself just primarily solves the problem of phishing. And the strategic human firewall essentially is designed to block deception, right? It is a proactive governance mindset that turns employees from what we would call passive targets into an active detection layer. It's a shift from I trust what I see to I verify everything. And the whole idea behind it is to get the employee thinking a lot differently than they have been or they do. So
Mm,
as AI driven social engineering bypasses, the technical perimeters, right? Cybersecurity employee training has to become a critical line of defense on a regular basis, not
mm,
just once a year, and more than just micro e-learning. To mitigate the human blind spot, of course, that psychological instinct to trust the familiar, as I said, you must transform your workforce into what I call the strategic human firewall. Those are the boots on the ground that are there to recognize risk as it occurs on a regular basis, so they get it, they understand it, they recognize it as if, like, you know you as the chief information security officer are sitting right next to them and saying, look it, let me explain to you what's happening right here. That right there, and these are the characteristics, that right there is fraud.
right.
You want, as the company security officer, your employees to think like you do. And the strategic human firewall is designed to get them to that level. So this is again, like I said, an essential shift from I trust what I see to I verify everything, which isn't normal behavior. What's normal behavior is biologically, I trust. Biologically, I give the benefit of the doubt. Biologically, I need to and want to and believe that people are good. And while they are, we know that there's 2 to 3% of them that aren't.
Very true. And from what I'm hearing from you, it sounds like mitigating risk is everyone's responsibility in the organization. And it makes me want to ask you, what does a governance mindset actually looks like in the day-to-day decision making in corporations?
So a governance mindset is the shift from autopilot,
Mm,
right, which is what we are mostly on, to intentional security. In this life, it means instinctively applying what I call the AAA protocol, right? Analyzing every request, authenticating uh, through what we would call a tactical pivot, right? And acting only when we are certain that the person on the other end is who they say they are. It is choosing what we would call friction points over convenience to protect yourself. The AAA protocol essentially is analyze the urgency, authenticate the source, and act only after verification. Doesn't that make sense?
it does. It does. It gives you a checkpoints that you can actually follow through.
It's designed to make a shift from emotionally reacting
Hmm.
to intellectually effectively responding.
Exactly. So, Robert, what will cybersecurity look like in the next 5 years if organizations don't address the human blind spot?
My fear is that, so right now, most security protocols, most technology, most engagement that we have with our devices and banking and accessing sensitive information, most of it is designed around what they call the grandmother test.
Hmm.
And what that means is, like, if your grandmother can do it, then then that means pretty much everybody will be able to manage, access, be able to navigate, their digital lives, right? My fear is that if the human blind spot is not properly addressed, that companies like Google and Apple and even your place of business where you work, they're going to have to lock their systems down in such a way where it's going to become very difficult to do your job. That they're going to be so overwhelmed with the insiders, the humans, the employees who are engaging in activities that facilitate potential fraud because they're being hoodwinked, that the companies are going to have to lock systems down in such a way where it's going to make it very difficult for us to function in a digital environment, in an employee environment.
Which defeats the purpose of even working in the first place, because then it will minimize productivity, which
That's it.
organizations want.
Yeah. And if they get on board now, if companies get on board now and they engage in one-on-one training that makes security personal, which we can certainly talk about, then I think that could quickly solve the problem.
Exactly. Why don't we address that? Do you believe human awareness can actually outpace AI threats? Why or why not?
Well, I don't know that current existing human awareness can outpace AI threats at all. But
Hmm.
but I do think that, with the right training, that employees, everyday moms and pops we do stand a chance, yes, with the right proper training, by effectively recognizing risk. So my philosophy is and has always been that, and coming from the world of personal protection, personal security, right, is that I define security as all security being personal. And what that means is the core belief that people protect what they love.
Right.
By teaching someone to secure, say, their child's digital footprint, their spouse's identity, you create a more secure workforce as a result. So, for example, in the presentations that I do, I spend like the first 20 minutes discussing what security is, what security isn't. We discuss, home security, whether you lock your doors or you have a home security system. We get into, physical self-defense, just like what it is and like why have you or haven't you taken it or taught it to your loved ones? Have you had a conversation with your daughters going off to college about sexual assault, which can be an uncomfortable conversation that people never have because they don't want to think these things can happen to them. We talk about things like denial, it happening to me. And these are all like cultural norms that people don't really think through when it comes to security. And our resistance to security all begins with, the fact that we don't want to think or believe that bad things can or ever will happen to me.
Mm,
We prefer to function in a level of denial. So what that means is, like, for example, when you're watching, say, the 6 o'clock news,
yes.
and something bad happens in a neighborhood
Hmm.
somewhere, and the local TV station goes into that neighborhood with a reporter, and she knocks on the neighbor's door, and then the neighbor comes outside, and she puts a microphone on the neighbor's face and asks the neighbor, "So what do you think about what happened?" What does that neighbor often say?
I don't know. Or maybe they're like, it didn't happen in here, so I'm not
"You don't think it's gonna happen
in
here."
here. Yes.
That's exactly what they always say. Because nobody wants to ever think about that. Nobody ever wants to believe that. Nobody even puts systems in place to prevent that.
Right.
We would much rather think and believe that these things can't or won't happen to me. We function in a level of denial. And then I ask people, like, how many of you actually have a home security system? And if I get 15 to 20% of the room to raise their hand, that's a lot. And so as I probe the 80%, I say, okay, so why don't you have a home security system? And the answers are often, well, we have insurance.
Right.
I'm like, "Okay, so you're okay with somebody breaking into your house at 3 o'clock in the morning because you have insurance?"
Friends to
Like,
save you.
and then people say, "Well, well, my husband says if they're gonna break in, they're gonna break in. There's really nothing we can do." And we call that a fatalist attitude.
Mm,
This is what I see. And then the one that I love is when they say, "Well, I don't have a home security system because I don't wanna live like that."
in fear.
Exactly. Don't you think that's kinda silly?
Yeah, it's very silly.
What they're saying is, I don't want a home security system in my house as a constant reminder
Mm,
that there's bad people out there.
out there.
And they literally say, I just want to be free. I don't want to have to worry. This is what I am up against.
Yeah,
This is what the chief information security officer at the corporation who's providing the annual check the box compliance training is up against. They're up against humans that don't want to even think about risk to begin with. They don't want to even believe that it can happen to them. And so the way that in which that you get them on board is through the strategic human firewall, training them that all security is personal. And you start with them, with their home, with their being, with their physical being,
mhm,
with their passwords, with two-factor authentication, with protecting their identities, with protecting their credit cards, like really basic stuff.
basic.
And
Very
once you get them on board, they start, like drinking the Kool-Aid of security. Oh, this is a good thing. I want this. I need this. My wife should be here. This is important. I want more of this in my life. And what
exactly.
happens is what I call the kitchen table effect.
Mm,
So that means this is like the multiplier effect where a successful strategic firewall training ends with employees teaching the concept to their families, cementing the lessons for life at home.
very important and well said. And Robert, we want to also end by saying, where can listeners learn more or start building first human security in their own lives? As you mentioned, it's very personal.
So I am online, like all of us. You can Google Robert Siciliano if you can spell it, Siciliano, but also, of course, at protectnowllc.com, protectnowllc.com.
Thank you so much, Robert. It's such a pleasure speaking with you. I've learned so much. Even the two systems authentication is a way to protect yourself from what I've learned from you today. So it's been a pleasure. And thank you for gracing us with your knowledge today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Awesome. Take care, everyone, and have a wonderful rest of your day.